Hi there guys, I hope you are having a good day. Now Tyson Fury spoke about perhaps fighting Deontay Wilder next, and maybe the Anthony Joshua fight isn't as close as many people are reporting or claiming it to be, with contracts being ready to be signed. Now, are there any ways in which this fight can happen between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder? And I get that if behind the scenes there are many things going on, and there is still a possibility of this fight happening, that's all well and good. The thing is that people are getting at is the fact that Tyson Fury explained he was able to move on. I know that if they are in a position where they must fight Deontay Wilder, then that is the case, but there were multiple claims from Bob Arum and Tyson Fury himself explaining that that fight was done, it was over, the contract had expired, so therefore they were not obligated to fight Deontay Wilder, they could move on and face Anthony Joshua for undisputed. This is the first time we are hearing anything about Wilder in recent times, especially from Team Fury, because previously it has been the contract has expired and they are not worried about it getting in the way of undisputed. That has been the reoccurring theme set by Bob Arum and even Tyson Fury himself. Tyson Fury even going as far as explaining he will never get back in the ring with Deontay Wilder because of what he said after February 22nd, 2020, their second fight. All of those conspiracy theories. Now, of course, if he is in a position where he must fight Deontay Wilder because of a contractual obligation, then that is what must go down. But if he is in a position where he can fight Anthony Joshua and chooses to fight Deontay Wilder, then he is clearly deviating from this undisputed plan. Perhaps there is still a wrinkle behind the scenes with that Wilder fight. And what could that be is the big question. Well, if we go back over it, these guys were supposed to rematch one another in June or July. I believe it was July. So they had a certain amount of time to get that fight done. It was not done because of a medical exemption or something from the team of Deontay Wilder, or Wilder said that he could not fight due to a bicep injury or something like that. That happened. Then the fight was scheduled for October. October 3rd was the date that they had in mind, and Wilder once again apparently said, no, I'm not fighting in October because of no fans, so let's move it to December. And again, no date in December was secured. They had 3 different dates, maybe even more than that never got nailed down for this trilogy fight. And if that is down to the part of Deontay Wilder, then he has no case to make for a third fight with Tyson Fury, because on multiple occasions he turned down the fight because you have a certain amount of time to get that fight done when the rematch clause is triggered, and Wilder done that within the time period after the second fight. So therefore, Tyson Fury is then obligated to face him, but there is obviously a time limit, and there is a medical exemption. If there's an injury, it can be moved. Wilder had that. There is probably a force majeure in the contract. That was triggered in October when they didn't fight due to fans not being allowed back in the arenas. They could have fought because many other fights were going on, but they didn't want to do it behind closed doors. If that is down to the decision of Deontay Wilder, that is the big question, because a date was then not secured in December and there was no excuse by that point. The injury had happened, the force majeure had happened, but third time, there is no excuse for the fight not to take place. If that does not go down, then the contract has expired. But the question is in that December date, does the force majeure still apply, considering Canelo versus Callum Smith saw nearly 15,000 fans return to the arena? Now that is the big question. What is the excuse for the fight not taking place in December? And when Tyson Fury decided to move on, was there still a possibility that they could make the fight in December or maybe even January? That could be the big stumbling block here, because there was a situation where Wilder said he needed to be exempt from this fight because of an injury, then a force majeure, then in December, what excuse is there? There is of course the possibility that Tyson Fury still fights Deontay Wilder. There is always that possibility, but how can lawyers of Top Rank and Tyson Fury himself look over the contract and explain that Tyson Fury is free to go and fight whoever he wants? The contract has indeed expired, so therefore he can go and make undisputed with Anthony Joshua. But is there still going to be implications of this Deontay Wilder situation? Can there be, considering what we have just explained? Well, it does come down to nitty gritty things. There can be sometimes this one little snag that means that Tyson Fury still has to fight him, and we do know that mediation was going down between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. Apparently Tyson Fury explained he's not doing mediation because he's never fighting Deontay Wilder again due to the comments made after their second fight. Then it was arbitration, but unfortunately in these situations it always comes down to the nitty gritty, and the big question is, did Tyson Fury follow the correct protocol after that contract had expired, or when it was about to expire? Did he have his lawyers look over it? We believe yes, so therefore he should be in a strong position with regards to that arbitration. At least that is what Tyson Fury explained, and Bob Arum also, when they came out with the announcement that they were moving on from Deontay Wilder due to the contract being expired. They said lawyers have looked over the contract and assured us that we are free to move on. So in that case, there shouldn't be any problems with Wilder versus Fury. And that is why people are going to be calling Tyson Fury out for saying he still might fight Deontay Wilder, after saying he's never going to fight him, after saying lawyers have looked over the contract and told him and assured him that he is free to move on. It is because of those claims that we can ask the question, why is he talking about Deontay Wilder when apparently we are so close to an undisputed fight? But according to Tyson Fury, there are things going on behind the scenes that could still scooper a fight between AJ and Fury, and that could still mean we get Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder. Seems unlikely, seems doubtful considering what we heard about the contract and the things we know, but we don't know the nitty gritty behind the scenes. Those are the things that could be the main sticking point for Tyson Fury, but again, we haven't heard much about Deontay Wilder quite recently, especially with regards to a fight with Tyson Fury. So it seems unlikely that that could get in the way of Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury. If it does or not, I guess only time will tell, but contracts apparently were about to be signed. So we were right there on the cusp of this fight being done. Now things that don't seem so certain. And I mean, it seems like even Deontay Wilder had given up on a third fight with Tyson Fury because he was undergoing negotiations with Charles Martin and talks to fight him. I mean, they did break down because he wanted too much money, I believe, but still, why would he be thinking about fighting someone else if he was so dead certain that he was in the right and he was going to fight Tyson Fury next? So therefore, we have to question, is there any possibility of Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder? If there is, then why? After claims that the contract had expired and they are free to move on. Guys, anyway, drop your thoughts on this in the comments below. Also leave a like and subscribe if you are new. Thanks guys.